All right, folks, good morning. Welcome. Good morning. Welcome to AUSA's Coffee Series featuring General Sean Gainey, Commanding General for the U.S. Army Space and Missile Defense Command. We have a great group here today. We appreciate you being here. Thank you. My name is Alex Brody. I am the Director of Meetings for the Association of the U.S. Army. And again, thank you for being here. I first want to thank our four-star sponsors, General Dynamics and Leonardo DRS, as well as our two-star sponsor, Leidos, for their support of the Coffee Series. We can't thank them enough for their support, and we appreciate everything they do for AUSA. Let's give our sponsors a big round of applause. If you're interested in being a sponsor at one of our events, I kindly ask that you reach out to either Gay Hudson or Emily Call. They're part of our sponsorship team. They're here today. You can meet with them after the event, and they're happy to go over all the great sponsorships we offer at AUSA. We appreciate the presence of general officers, command sergeants, majors joining us this morning as well. It's always great to have you here, so thank you. I'd also like to acknowledge congressional staff who have joined us this morning. Your efforts on behalf of the Army, soldiers, and families is greatly appreciated. With that, it gives me great pleasure to introduce the President and Chief Executive Officer for the Association of the U.S. Army. Please put your hands together for General Robert Brown.
All right, well, good morning, everybody. Great to be here. It's the first coffee series on the fourth floor here, and we appreciate your patience coming up to the fourth floor. But it's a pretty nice setup. We're renovating the first floor. It's going to be even nicer, and really a great place to have events. So thanks for being here. Thanks for joining us. You really you got a treat this morning. Sean Gainey, unbelievable leader. And I tell you, I thought I knew how complex SMDC was. But I started reading, I'm like, holy smokes, your Army Service Component Command for 3 different commands, and it's unbelievable. So let me introduce him. He assumed command of U.S. Army Space and Missile Defense Command and Joint Functional Component Command for Integrated Missile Defense this past January. And again, we were just talking, it's unbelievable how this has picked up. This is an area, it's a growth industry, right? It's not slowing down, so unbelievable. In his role, he leads the 2,600 military and civilian professionals in their truly no-fail mission of providing the Army and Joint Force trained and equipped space and global ballistic missile defense forces, as well as space, missile defense, and high-altitude capability. And the command also serves, as I mentioned earlier, 3 Army Service Component Commands for U.S. Space Command, for U.S. Strategic Command, and for ground-based mid-course defense to U.S. Northern Command. And again, incredibly complex, incredibly important. Sean graduated from Georgia Southern University, where he was an offensive lineman, superstar on the football team, and a great university with always a great team down there, Georgia Southern. That was way back in 1990. I know he looks very young. I was telling him, but way back in 90. He got a bachelor in business administration. He was commissioned as second lieutenant in Air Defense Artillery. And he also earned a Master of Science in Personnel Management from Central Michigan University and a Master of Science in National Security and Resource Strategy from the Dwight D. Eisenhower School for National Security. He most recently served as Director of Joint Counter UAS Office and Director of Fires in the G357 in the Pentagon headquarters, DA. However, I'm positive his most impressive job was when he commanded the 94th AAMDC out in the Indo-Pacific. We got a chance to serve together. It was a tough time. Kim Jong-un was going a little bit crazy, and back in 2017, and Sean was amazing in what he did with THAAD and Patriot and across the theater. Absolutely unbelievable. I'm proud to have served with him there, and that I'm going to make that his definitely his greatest command ever. Did an amazing job. So please join me in welcoming Lieutenant General Sean Gainey. Start off with questions, and then we'll open it up. So think of tough questions. We don't want any softballs out here. So think of some tough questions, and there's lots of areas to cover. But Sean just mentioned SMDC and ASCC for 3 commands. It's complex, and it's a key integrator for the Army of Air and Missile Defense. Can you explain just a little bit more? You just took over January. Give us a little more background on SMDC.
Yes, sir. Coming into command of SMDC in JIFIC IMD, I had a pretty good feel of what I was getting into, but listening to Dan Karbler and General Dickinson prior talk about what a great command, I think they undersold it. I tell you, this is a phenomenal command, phenomenal people, great mission, and it gives me the opportunity to get out and see across the globe what we actually do. So just take you all through a little bit of what Space and Missile Defense Command does. First, we're the Army Service Component Command for 3 COCOM commanders. SpaceCom, we have assigned forces via my 1st Space Brigade that provides forces to SpaceCom, and we serve in that role. We also serve as the Army Service Component Command for NORTHCOM for our GMD mission. Our 100th Missile Defense Brigade provides trained and ready forces for the GBI mission, no-fail mission, 365 to NORTHCOM to be able to defeat a intercontinental ballistic missile. And then finally, we are the Army Strategic Command for Army Service Component Command for STRATCOM. And in that role, we continue to provide intel capability, and really we're redefining that Army Service Component Command as we move forward in what we actually do for STRATCOM. I also serve as the commander of SMDC. I also serve as the Integrated Air and Missile Defense synchronizer for the Chief of Staff of the Army. So all of the Army Integrated Air and Missile Defense synchronization, force structure, modernization, really I work closely with the enterprise to drive that moving forward. And also serve as the Senior Mission Commander for Kwajalein Atoll. And, we have a important test mission out at Kwajalein where essentially STRATCOM is the only place they can test some of their strategic capabilities. And we also provide some space capabilities out there also for Space Command. And I think that's an untapped resource that in the future you'll see a lot more done from an MDO type of range out at Kwajalein. And I serve as the Senior Mission Commander for Fort Greely, Alaska, appropriately so, with the GBIs and the silos that are out in that location. And then finally, I also serve as the commander of the Joint Force Functional Component Command, Integrated Air Missile Defense, where I have an amazing team that essentially synchronize globally to Trans-Regional Missile Defense, UCP tasks for SpaceCom. And in that role, whether it's sensor manager, training, globally for all the COCOMs, in that command, we essentially do that. So a lot going on, not only in SMDC, but also in JIFIC IMD across the globe.
I was going to ask what your hobbies are, but you don't have time for hobbies.
Traveling, traveling.
Holy smokes! Your golf game's probably terrible. That's unbelievable.
Yes,
it almost feels like, with the changes and how the warfare is changing and drones and all the capabilities that they may need to create additional commands almost, but how do you establish priorities?
Yes, sir.
And the priorities established for the Army and missile defense and space with all that responsibility?
Yes, and if you look at it in one of the areas, initially I'd go back and highlight it. We also have what's called a tech center inside of Space and Missile Defense Command, where we do our own internal S&T work. So we're able to do the gap analysis across the space and missile defense portfolio through our Center of Excellence. And then our Center of Excellence is able to walk down, hand that document to our tech center from an S&T perspective. And they can go out, work closely with industry from an S&T and see what's out there to help get after some of the challenges that we have moving forward. So again, a vast command in areas that, having the ability to take S&T work and then having a Center of Excellence and a ACM. I have 2 ACMs, ACMs for strategic missile defense and ACM for space and high altitude. And then can work directly with the PMs and then take that capability to my 100th Missile Defense Brigade with the GBIs, test it out, working closely with the Missile Defense Agency, or go directly to my 1st Space Brigade and take that capability, try it out, test it out, and then send it back and essentially get prototypes out there quickly. One of the paradigms that I used in the Joint Counter US office that we're leveraging inside of SMDC. So you're able to work through the whole span of capability development and user feedback and back down, working closely with industry.
And this is an area where the adversaries are changing constantly. So you've got to be able to turn stuff rapidly. It seems like a challenge. Does Futures Command help you with that?
They do. They do. And one of the things that I'm adamant about within this command is just like our Center of Excellence, they fall under me. Our Tech Center falls under me, but we work closely with TRADOC. We work closely with Futures Command on the requirements and the capabilities gap and work as a team effort, able to link together. And you're right, sir, the evolution of the threat the pace is so fast. And I saw this as the director for the Joint Counter US office, where we would introduce capability into a theater, and as soon as it's introduced, we'll already see countermeasures being implemented. So, from an integrated air missile defense perspective, the modernization is going to be key to how we move forward, integrating our capabilities into integrated battle command system and having a system approach that's software-based and able to link additional capabilities in, because technology, while the adversary is evolving, so is our technology. And industry is responding, whether it's high-powered microwave, directed energy, non-kinetic capability. Industry is responding, and we're leveraging that capability. And you could see it in some cases deployed right now, and our soldiers have their hand on that capability to be able to keep pace with the threat.
Yeah, that's terrific. So one of the challenges that's been around, I can remember visiting THAAD and Patriot units, and it's just unbelievable op tempo on them, the strain, and it's only gotten worse. There was more demand everywhere. There's never enough. What can you do? And that's got to be a challenge for you in the command. How do you mitigate some of those strains on soldiers and families?
It
is
is
high op tempo.
It is, sir. And I tell you, we ask a lot of our great soldiers in the air and missile defense community, and also, I have a better appreciation for our soldiers in the space community. And what I'm starting to see is, because of that demand, like it started on the integrated air and missile defense portfolio, is starting to come also on the space soldiers, because we have a limited amount of soldiers that do that space mission. So we're seeing a heavy from the COCOMs and the units here. So as far as integrated air missile, we're not doing enough. We're not doing enough right now, but the demand exceeds the capability that we have right now. We can never fill the demand and the need for integrated air missiles. You can look around, especially with the introduction of the Group 3 one-way attacks, just puts an additional strain on our short-range air defense capability. So, but we're not giving up. We're not walking away from it. We're the key to our ability to get after the op tempo is our modernization effort. As we modernize our force and integrate our capability into the IBCS battle command system, leveraging the LTAM system, we're going to be able to do more with less, and therefore reduce the amount of soldiers that we have to push forward in the theater to be able to do the same mission set. So as you integrate that capability and leverage the technology that's in our LTAM's radar, our extended range interceptors, and our ability to disperse our forces and still fight through one command and control system, is going to greatly reduce our requirement forward. So that's going to be the key to reducing the op tempo. Until then, until demand is reduced, which is not going to happen anytime soon. It's going to be very tough to honestly look the soldiers in the eye and say, hey, something's going to change.
So this is a case where we often hear technology does not reduce the manpower requirements, but in this case, you're hoping it does to help that op tempo a little bit. But that makes sense.
Yes, sir, and it will, from the aspect, because of the threat out there, we're having to leverage more capability for a mission set. With our modernization, we're building based off knowing that there's a 360 threat. And so that unit of action will be able to cover more as opposed to the current system right now.
All right, let's talk a little space, the final frontier, right? And, Army space. So the Army released back in last December a vision space within multi-domain operations. It looks like there's a lot of partnership required, pretty complex. What's SMDC's role in that?
Yeah, so SMDC helped craft the vision, and essentially the vision bottom line states, don't just look at Space and Missile Defense Command as your space entities. Everybody is involved in space, all the formations, everybody across the Army. So everybody has to be prepared to fight in a degraded, denied environment and be able to leverage space all the way down to the tactical level. So to do that, we as SMDC developed a Army space training strategy that essentially focuses on that. How do you get space capability and space awareness all the way down to the tactical level? We're doing that with systems. For example, in the multi-domain task force, you have space capability resident inside of those formations. We leverage that with our space experts inside of formations, inside of division, brigades. But it needs to be more than that. It needs to be, everybody needs to. So what we're doing is in partnership, that training strategies in partnership with TRADOC, FORCECOM, and essentially building it inside of the schoolhouse, that initial training, all the way through the training pipeline, integrating space as part of awareness. How do you integrate, how do you operate an environment? And then when you get to the CTCs, leverage the capability we have resident inside of SMDC that we're also pushing out to the CTCs to put you in a realistic environment that you're going to see in a multi-domain type of environment, and then force the units all the way down to the squad level to be able to react and respond to a denied or degraded environment.
Intellectual change, you know, because a few years ago you'd ask an infantryman, hey, do you have anything to do with space? No, I have nothing to do with space. Doesn't do anything for us. Well, they can't do hardly anything with that.
Absolutely, sir.
Everything from GPS to you name it. So that's part of that. You have an initiative on a space MOS. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yes, sir. So this is one of the, again, a lot of great work by the leaders in vision that came before me, seeing that, hey, we can no longer continue to do things business as usual. And the way we operate right now is we pull soldiers from air defense, bring them in, signal corps, and MI, and we build crews based off of several different MOSs. It's almost a 3-year cycle where we bring them in, train them, get them certified. Then they're probably able to do one mission set, and then they go back to their basic branch. What is everybody know? That's probably not a good business model if you want trained experts. So the concept we developed is take those authorizations that are already being provided to those different branches and change those soldiers to 40 Delta MOS to where now they're space soldiers and they're experts. So they get basic training, AIT all the way up. And then you get a professional non-commissioned officer corps, which we're really excited about because we're saying we bring in non-commissioned officers that are coming in from other branches. MI don't know a whole lot about space, but it's a authorization within their branch. And so they feel it, and they're trying to be an expert at their craft within that 3-year period also. So we're not doing this either.
Yeah.
And so we've developed that concept, worked closely with the branches. Now it's at the Army G1, and the Chief of Staff of the Army and Secretary of the Army will make a decision on creating the space MOS. And we believe this is a stepping stone to a space branch to continue to move it forward.
Yeah,
so we have that professional.
Fascinating. It's certainly not some part-time. You really need that expertise.
Yes,
I know the Sergeant Major is just concerned they're going to, if they have that MOS, they're going to change in that funky uniform, space uniform, right? So,
no, sir, they'll stay in the Army uniform.
Yeah, just kidding. You mentioned a couple unique commands, you know, the 1st Space Command and the 100th Missile Defense Brigade. And that's fascinating. They're one of a kind in the Army.
sir.
And can you kind of explain a little bit further their role and
Yes, sir. So
how do they cover so much? One
Yes, sir.
brigade?
So I'll start with the Missile Defense Brigade and their subordinate battalion, 49th Battalion, that's out at Fort Greely, really manning, defending the continental United States and overseas part of the United States against the ICBM. And essentially, they man the C2 system. The GBIs provide security for that site and are prepared to respond with the capabilities upon notice to be able to defeat a intercontinental ballistic missile. No fail mission. So as you can imagine, those crews have to be certified at all times. Those crews have to be prepared at all times. There's no break for those crews. They stay on rotation cycle, and they do it very well, very well. And I throw them an additional task because of my former job as the Joint Counter U.S. Office. As we figure out how to do CONUS Counter U.S., it's easy to do it out in CENTCOM or because you have all the authorities. Throw out, it's not so easy in the United States. We have to work closely with the FAA and other. So on that site, that is the DoD proof of principle site for Counter US, and working closely with Northcom and General Gio on how to move that forward. And so essentially, the Army has invested with capability that's at no other place inside of the CONUS on that site. And so we fuse that capability together in the C2 system of system, and we'll demonstrate in the coming weeks our ability and then inform the rest of the development inside of the United States based out there. And that's a mix of non-kinetic capability, low collateral interceptor, and radar. Now, it's 1st Space Brigade, another fantastic organization. And 1st Space Brigade has right now is really the only brigade that's provided as a force for SpaceCom. And so essentially SpaceCom has the ability to leverage this. And right now they leverage a couple of missions forward in the Indo-PACOM AOR and the CENTCOM-UCOM AOR. And they have resident capabilities, space capabilities inside of that brigade. But they also have the only space control planning element that's, you might imagine, in order for our systems to be able to do the work that they do, you need the space control planning teams to be able to plan the fires, to integrate the fires into the planning cycle. And so that brigade has that mission set and has a significant coverage area, really, across all the COCOMs to be able to provide capability, because we also have capability inside the multi-domain task force that's resident down at the tactical level. So another great mission set of that organization, and doing phenomenal work out there.
Yeah, it almost seems like they're going to have to grow as we look. And that's kind of my next question. And then I'm throwing it over to you, so get ready with your questions. But as we look to the future, I'm going to ask you to, kind of predict here. We look out, 2030, 35, 2040. Where does missile defense and space, where does it go? What do you see? What are the capabilities? What is industry? What's the future?
Yes, sir. So great point to step off from. I'll start with space. So you're right. As we look out in 2030, we know from all the Army warfighting concepts that we have to grow space capability, and we have to grow air missile defense. And one of the things that I'm excited about is that, in the Army right now, there are two precious resources: growth in the TAA and funding above your current palm. And in the space and missile defense area, we've done both. And to get money, and I always joke with the team, Carl Gingrich, I know he was here a few months ago, our good friends. Whenever you can get money out of his pocket, you're doing pretty good, because it's hard to get any money, extra money, any extra change out of his pocket. It's the importance of space moving forward. But from a space perspective, we know we have to grow formation, so we're going across the 5 MDTFs. We know 1st Space Brigade highlighted the planner effort. We got to grow more space control planning teams. We're doing that. We're growing an additional space control planning company, and we're growing what's called a theater fixed strike TSEG inside of INDOPACOM as a pilot organization, but we believe that each COCOM should have resident one of those elements inside to be able from the theater level all the way
Makes
to
sense.
a level
Yeah.
leverage. So resident in there are space control type capabilities that I know my team is working closely with industry on. How do you take our larger program of record and go after some smaller form factors that you can get all the way down at the tactical level and be able to maneuver around to support our forces. So that's where we're really leveraging industry. We're working a lot with prototypes with those small form factors, getting them out to the soldiers, getting feedback and making it better. So growth and increased capability. Integrated air and missile defense, we're on a modernization path to 2030 to fleet our integrated battle command station, IBCS enabled force. And that force will have the ability to integrate the new LTAMS radar, but more than that, be able to integrate eventually by 2030. We have to integrate all the way from counter UAS capability in our IBCS maneuver all the way up to tactical ballistic missiles. It has to be seamless. So when we employ that capability, we can no longer employ it in isolation where you have a counter UAS battery, a Patriot unit, and then, you know, a counter cruise missile unit. The way the adversary is fighting, what we're seeing in Ukraine and other locations is they're going to come at you 360, and that operator has to have the ability to leverage a counter UAS effector, a counter cruise missile effector, and a missile effector, while saving his resources for the appropriate threat, while not depleting his counter cruise missile capability by leveraging all of his counter cruise against a drone, leveraging all his. He has to be able to have that mix to be able to respond, and that's what our IBCS system does. And by 2030, that's where we want to be. And we'll test that out. We'll field it first in Guam, and then we'll be able to test it out in Guam. And the 94th, the great 94th, has the role of pulling that together.
They'll do it right.
So they'll do it right. So I'm very confident. So
that's interesting because, you know, we knew IBCS seemed very important. It's grown in importance. No doubt that ability is going to be critical.
Yes, sir.
So, okay, we go. Let's see. We have a question out there. All right.
Brian. Thanks for your comments today. Appreciate it. Brian McCullough, Lockheed Martin Government Affairs. You mentioned Guam. Do you see SMDC taking on any kind of .MLPF role as you figure out in the Army and the Joint Force how to fight that? Number one. Number two, any comments on where you're taking high altitude platforms like airships or balloons, et cetera, what they would be used for possibly in that future Army? Thank you.
Great questions, Brian, and I appreciate both of them. So I'll start with Guam. Yes, I think SMDC has a role, but we'll work very closely with RICTO as they, from a JPO perspective, pull us on. We put 2 Army 06s inside of that organization to help with the .MLPF because we know that's important as we get the capability and the material out there. That's only the start of it. Then we have to work across the entire .MLPF. So we'll work in coordination, and we, you know, as SMDC, will have part of the architecture also when you look at non-kinetic capability moving forward. So we'll be integral part of the entire architecture. High altitude balloon. I'm glad you brought that topic up. So right now, you know, my team, that's, you know, when we talk about squeezing money, pulling money, we were able to pull money from the Army to get after high altitude balloon from a prototyping perspective. SMDC is the proponent for high altitude, and we've been working very closely with USASOC, and General Braga has been doing some phenomenal work operationally using the high altitude balloon. So from a capability development, there's a, you know, it's, you look out there, there's all kind of technology to either extend mission command or to extend your eyes out there, or to extend some of the capability, space capability, depending on the platform that you put on these balloons. But we're agnostic right now to the type of balloon. We're just going after the best durable and rapidly employable from a soldier perspective. to get that capability. So right now we're working with prototypes. We know industry is doing a lot of work in this area, but really to get after those few areas that we highlighted. Thanks.
Good morning, sir. Tom Carrico, CSIS. You talked about modernization helping op tempo, but we've got some pretty high op tempo right now, Middle East, Europe, all this kind of stuff. Is that not affecting and impeding some of the modernization? Because if a Patriot radar is out there in Jordan or Poland, it's not getting its wire updated, kind of thing. And then number two, how do you see the force structure for especially the IFPC and the cruise missile piece of that? How is that proceeding? Is it getting enough soldiers going after it as it was intended a year ago or so?
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I meant to tackle that when I highlighted it first. Yeah, so we're essentially transforming in contact right now. There's no doubt about it. And the Army fully understands that every decision we make to employ additional force could potentially have an impact on our ability to modernize. Fortunately for the Army, we made a decision a while ago to protect one of our battalions to be the test battalion. And so as we build that test battalion, we will have one modernized battalion, then it's the flow after that. Right now, based off of where the Army has moved in some of our demand requirements, we feel we are on path to meet our modernization goals. And we work closely with the Army senior leaders and DOD and OSD to ensure that they understand, depending on how we move forward, could potentially impact modernization. And you're right, because we need modernization to reduce some of the strain. So, so as of right now, we're moving on the right path to get after peace. Now, IFPC is one of the key components to our modernization strategy because counter cruise missile defense is an area that we're able to do, but we're doing it with our Patriot system. Obviously, we would rather do it with our IFPC system. So we've started fielding with prototypes our first unit, building that unit because, again, it's the same soldiers we're building a lot of those formations with. Right now, we remain on path to build the divisional 88 battalions and the cruise missile formations inside of the MDTF at the core level. No issues at this time progressing forward with the force structure plan that we have in place and the growth that we have in place.
Hi, Meredith Roden from Janes. I just wanted to ask a quick follow-up on the force structure aspect of it. Can you talk about some of the experimentation that's been done this year, and if you're kind of satisfied with where the Army has announced those new battalions and those new units for the new technology, and if you think there's potential to add more or add different kinds of formations?
Okay, so let me make sure I'm capturing your question accurately. So experimentation. So we're experimenting with high-powered microwave and directed energy inside of our formations. Is that which you want me to make sure?
Yes.
Okay, so we in the Army, working closely with the Joint Counter-UAS Office and the Army DAMO fires, are looking the best ways to integrate capability inside of our formations to be able to defeat the cruise, the UAS threat, and a lower cost for cruise missiles. So I'll start with the UAS threat. So as part of looking at additional low-cost technology, we integrated directed energy on a Stryker, directed energy lasers, essentially, on a fixed site platform, pushed them forward inside CENTCOM and are learning off of them. Right now, we have a directed energy platoon of Strykers integrated into one of our short-range air defense units, and we're continuing to learn. Right now, there's a decision made. We are watching directed energy, and we're finding what's the right sweet spot for sustainment and ability to get after a threat and then the Army will make a decision on, do we move forward with palletized platforms, or do we put more capability on not just the divisional ADA strikers, but across all maneuver platform, because RICTO is also looking at a 20 kilowatt that goes on a infantry fighting vehicle. So we're looking across the spectrum to be able to get this capability out holistically. So no decision yet, a lot of learning, but informing that decision. And one of the things, Space and Missile Defense Command working with RICTO will help make a decision over the next couple of years. As RICTO and the JCO and the Army looks at how this is actually being employed, and then looking at my tech center, working closely with industry, saying, where can this technology go? Can we get a better beam? Can we go further? Can we do it in adverse environment? And all that will inform how we move forward inside a formation. So no decisions right now, one platoon inside of formation. High-powered microwave, another technology area that we're pretty excited about. So we did a competition out at White Sands. RICTO selected one unit, was a unit from EPRIS, and we brought 4 prototypes, and that unit of action is going to go to 151 ADA, and they're going to as one of their platoons, and they're going to test this capability in an operational setting and see, is this something we want to move forward with inside of the Army, and we'll make a decision on it also. So 1 platoon inside of our IFPIC battalion in 151 ADA right now, but as we move forward in the future, we will see how we move from a force structure inside of the formation, because I believe there's a place for directed energy, high-powered microwave, and our non-kinetic capability that we're leveraging in the counter UAS fight.
Sir, we have one final question right over here.
Morning, sir. Major Youngju, Army Fellow, AUSA. Question for you. So in the beginning, sir, you opened with all the hats you wear, sir, as a leader. So question for you is, 1, what is your biggest challenge as a leader who is juggling many hats? And also, having been a professional soldier and also a former college athlete from the Gridiron, Georgia Southern University, what is the biggest life lesson that you still apply till today?
Oh.
Easy question to end it. Yeah.
Okay. There's a lot of thinking there. Too much thinking. So I'll start with the fun one. General Brown and I were sitting there talking athletics in college, military, and one of the things we were talking about is, the ability to build teams, in athletics and sports was something I was always attracted to me as part of being in sports, and that's what attracted me into ROTC. Is they had me hook, line, and sinker when they told me about being a platoon leader and being a team. I was like, I'm going to do that. And that's all I want to do is be a platoon leader and build that team, that platoon team. And if you look at from day one to transition from being an athlete, being a platoon leader, building that team, competitive spirit inside of that team, always wanting to win, all the way up until now, same concept. My vision, if you see my vision now, it states, one team, building one team. Every individual of that team is a valued member of that organization, building a strong team. Because if you have a team, you can get after anything. There's nothing too hard to get after if you have a strong team and everybody believes in the vision statement and how to move forward. So that's something I've always carried with me. Now, challenges, looking forward, several challenges out there. And really, the challenge is going to be, how do you take all the capability and everything you want to do in this space and missile defense aspect, knowing you have a pretty much set force structure, and it's going to be very difficult to do anything in a no-growth environment. And same from a budgetary perspective. We're trying to drive. We're working closely with industry to develop lower cost type capability. But my bottom line is we have to be able to defeat the threat first. So, and it's going to cost money to give industry a challenge and to defeat that threat. Once we're able to defeat that threat, and I take this lesson from the counter UAS portfolio, where everybody wanted to throw all kind of money at us just to defeat the threat. And then when we started to defeat the threat, then they say, hey, bring the cost down to doing it. Well, I was talking to Tom before, and that's a position I want to be in. I'd much rather be in that position of forcing me to bring the cost down to not having the capability to defeat a certain threat. That's the biggest challenge. As you look at what our adversaries doing with Mars and hypersonics and everything, all of that is geared around outpacing our ability to defeat their capability. And defeating it first, and then once we defeat it, then bringing the cost down. I think industry is good at responding to that, and I think that's going to challenge, because it's going to require additional RTD&E funding to be able to get after this. And I can see a lot of frustration, and in every conference you go into, everybody talks like, hey, how do we bring the cost down, lower cost, lower cost? Yeah, we all want to get there. And some of these technologies like high-powered microwave, directed energy, non-connects will help us get there. But as that trajectory of technology comes, you still have this challenge area of how do you fill in that gap as this technology is maturating is the challenge we have. So we have to be prepared and be willing to invest in technology to get after that threat, while the other technology that we know the cost is going to be brought down has time to get there is probably the biggest challenge moving forward in defending that budget and force structure as we continue to move forward. Unfortunately, the threat has helped drive those decisions, but we'll see as we continue to move forward in the future. And last plug I will say is, if you look at some of the things that Ukraine and our partners do, they are leveraging low-cost stuff, and there are things we can learn from them and leverage from them. Some of the things they're doing with their acoustic sensors to be able to see some of these UASs at a low cost is something that's impressive that they're doing, and some of that technology we can probably leverage inside of our capability also.
I'll tell you, I learned a heck of a lot more about space and missile defense. And I'm also, it makes me feel really good that, Sean, you're in command of that complex organization. So how about join me thanking Sean Gainey. Some upcoming events. 30 July, we'll have a virtual noon report. It'll be really interesting. It'll be the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Health Affairs, Dr. Martinez Lopez, covering health issues. And I'm not sure there's anybody here that wouldn't be interested in that, because this is active duty, retired, across the board families. So there's be really interesting. You won't want to miss that on 30 July. For September, we've got aviation hot topics right here. Those are always great. An entire day. We'll have great panels looking at the latest and greatest in aviation and where the needs are, and great discussions. Again, that's for September. And then the event we're all waiting for, right around the corner. It's amazing to me. Seems like it was just yesterday. Annual meeting, 14 to 16 October. And again, I feel like we just finished last year's, but this year's going to be bigger and better. Unbelievable. You won't want to miss it. Registration is now open. So, hustle up and register. You don't want to be left out. I really appreciate it. And thanks to those of you who are members. Membership matters. And if you're not a member, hey, join the team that supports our great Army. So thanks for coming. Have a great Army Day. It looks like, all right, I made it. And Leidos, as well as a 2-star sponsor. I mentioned General Dynamics, Leonardo DRS. So thanks to our sponsors. But thanks for coming. Really appreciate it. Have a great Army Day.
Cool.